Concept assembly line, where ideas get to work. If inflation is a fire, then public policy traditionally works like the fire department. When the economy gets too hot, too much money chasing too few goods, the government raises interest rates, cuts spending, or uses taxes to cool things down. And if you have been following along, you know it should be investing proactively to expand capacity to head inflation off at the chase. That approach still makes sense when the fire is caused by actual scarcity. Too little oil, not enough housing, backed up supply chains. But what happens when prices rise even though there's no real shortage? What if companies are raising prices because they can, not because they have to? That's not theory. That's what's happening in today's economy. After the worst of the COVID pandemic, prices surged across all kinds of goods, from groceries and gas to furniture and shipping. At first, it looked like a classic supply chain problem, but then the earnings reports came out. It turned out that many companies weren't just passing along higher costs, they were increasing their profit margins. That means they used the excuse of inflation to raise prices faster than their own costs were rising. In short, they saw an opportunity and they took it. And in many industries, they got away with it because no one else could stop them. The key to understanding this shift is recognizing how some companies have gained the power to set prices rather than take them. In competitive markets, companies can't raise prices much without losing customers to someone else. That's how capitalism is supposed to work. But when a single firm dominates an industry, or when just 2 or 3 firms control the entire supply chain, they can raise prices without fear of losing business. Because where else are people going to go? Take Walmart, for example. When it enters a small town, it usually undercuts local businesses on price. That's good for consumers in the short term. But once the hardware store, the grocery store, and the pharmacy have all closed, Walmart becomes the only game in town. Over time, prices can creep back up. Not because Walmart is inefficient, but because there's no longer competition to keep it in check. Or consider Amazon. It's not just an online store. It's a delivery service, a payment platform, a product search engine, and a marketplace for third-party sellers. Because Amazon controls every step of the customer experience, it's able to shape the market in ways smaller businesses can't. It can use its dominance in logistics to underprice competitors. It can feature its own branded products at the top of search results. And because millions of people rely on Amazon for everything from batteries to baby formula, even a slight price increase gets absorbed, not resisted. This isn't just about size, it's about networks. Amazon's power comes from the fact that so many buyers and sellers are locked into its ecosystem. The more people use it, the harder it becomes to leave. Economists call this a network effect, but you don't need a degree to understand the trap. It's like being in a town with one gas station. You might not love the price, but you're not driving 40 miles to find another one. Here's the danger. If prices are rising because of corporate power, not real-world scarcity, then many of our usual tools for fighting inflation stop working. When the Federal Reserve raises interest rates, it's trying to slow down borrowing and spending. That can help in some cases, but here it is a lot like medieval doctors bleeding patients to stop fever. It doesn't touch the reason Amazon or Walmart or your regional hospital network is raising prices. Those companies aren't borrowing to fund their operations. They're raising prices because they can, and higher interest rates don't change that. Worse, raising rates too high can actually make the problem worse. Small businesses get crushed. Home buyers back out of the market. Entrepreneurs can't access affordable loans. Meanwhile, the big players, flush with cash, vertically integrated, and largely debt-free, emerge even more dominant. The tools meant to cool the economy end up reinforcing the power of the very firms driving inflation. To really deal with this kind of inflation, we need to stop thinking about it purely as a problem of demand. It's a problem of market structure. In previous policy proposals, a new approach to inflation took shape. One focused on encouraging investment in production and punishing rent-seeking through margin-based taxes, where companies with unusually high profit margins pay more. The idea was simple: reward firms that reinvest in capacity and tax those who squeeze consumers without providing more value. In another came the argument for public housing, not just as a social program, but as a macroeconomic tool. When governments build affordable, high-quality housing at scale, it forces private landlords to lower rents. Public supply becomes a price anchor that keeps the rest of the market honest. But these tools only work if pricing power is still responsive to costs and competition. When a firm can ignore both, when it owns the rails, the warehouse, the checkout button, and the product, it can pocket any public investment as profit. In that scenario, even well-designed policy becomes a subsidy for monopolists. So how do we fix this? First, we need to restore competition. That means breaking up dominant firms where possible, but also regulating them where competition isn't realistic. If Amazon controls most of the infrastructure for online retail, maybe that infrastructure should be treated like a utility, required to serve all sellers equally, not just Amazon's own brands. If two meat packers control the price of beef for the entire Midwest, maybe that's not a free market at all. Second, we need to build public alternatives. Just as public housing pressures rent prices, public broadband can lower internet bills. Publicly manufactured generic drugs could discipline pharmaceutical prices. These programs don't need to take over entire sectors. They just need to exist so that private firms know they can't set prices in a vacuum. Third, we should tax inflationary behavior directly. A margin-based business tax would increase when profit margins grow faster than costs. If companies want to maintain high earnings, they'd need to reinvest in workers, infrastructure, or R&D. Things that actually expand economic capacity instead of simply raising prices. This isn't just about price tags. It's about who has the power to shape the economy. In the past, inflation was seen as a tug-of-war between consumers and producers, between workers and capital. Today, it's increasingly a contest between public purpose and private dominance. To bring prices under control, it's not enough to adjust interest rates or tweak government budgets. We have to reshape the ground rules of the marketplace itself. That means breaking up monopolies, building public options, and taxing price-setting power when it spirals out of control. Inflation isn't just a policy problem, it's a design problem. And that means it's fixable if we're willing to challenge who holds the power to price our lives. Please subscribe to help keep the content coming. It costs you nothing, but makes all the difference.